This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to my review of the book titled For Your Eyes Only, although it's more accurately a review of the short stories from A View to Kill, For Your Eyes Only, Quantum of Solace, Risico, and the Hildebrand Rarity. And honestly, it's a fine book. It wasn't something I knew initially was a series of short stories. So it wasn't super exciting for me for that. I feel like none of these are truly incredible on their own. They're all fun, but I feel like none of them has that intrigue which James Bond I feel like needs a good amount of time to go through. And of all the short stories, there's only one I really enjoyed, which is from the next one of this, which is actually Fleming's final book, so it'll be taking me a little bit to get to there. So going to the first one, honestly, I barely even remember from A View to Kill. When I was reading through it, I thought that was just the prologue to it, and didn't know initially that this was just a series of short stories. So I honestly don't remember too much of this one. But going to the next one, this one was a more enjoyable one, which was what this was named after, which is For Your Eyes Only, where Bond is sent to go and assassinate someone who killed one of M's really close personal friends, and he meets up with this person's daughter, and she wants to get revenge also. It was a pretty enjoyable story, and I feel like it was the second best one of this collection. It's a solid one, but honestly, I think that it could have been more interesting to have this maybe broken out to be just a little bit longer of a story, but still is pretty entertaining. Going on to the next one, Quantum of Solace, which really has nothing to do with James Bond at all. He's literally just the person in the room listening to the story about just this absolutely terrible relationship between a person in the British military and I can't remember if he was a spy or not, but he was at least in the British military, and is just honestly terrible wife who he met on an airplane, and she was I can think of the flight attendant, and through that he falls in love with her, and she basically falls in love with the idea of him. And then once she gets bored of him, she starts cheating on him, which absolutely destroys him until he's sent off on a mission on his own. And after that, he returns and just absolutely destroys her life by first divorcing her and saying that if she did anything, that he would expose this to really everyone that she was cheating and that he was going to easily be able to win this. And he would just kick her out and she'd have nowhere to live. And then he went on this absolutely brutal revenge plan where she says that she has nothing. So he leaves her basically his radio and his car, where she learns that both are in defaults on loans and she isn't going to get really any money off of them. She has to give away the car, will give the car back, and that just gives them a forgiveness. But then she actually has to pay the person to take the radio back. And then, because honestly, it's a pretty brutal form of revenge, but she did push her ex to his breaking point, and you can feel at least she partially deserved it. And then we learn that she did eventually get a break, and after the just absolutely terrible things that happened with her, she was taken pity on by the governor's wife, I believe, and then he went and decided to, she had mercy on him, and then after all that, she was eventually able to meet a rich man who married her. So while things did technically work out for her, she had a pretty miserable time. Interesting story, and that's probably the best one of them, even though Bond barely makes an appearance in it. Okay, now moving on to the next one, and being fully honest, I forgot a good amount of this one. I had to look up a summary of it just to make sure of really everything, and with this one, honestly, it was definitely an interesting, but as I said, forgettable story because I had to look up the summary of it, and honestly, it was a fun story where he's sent against a suspected drug lord. He is captured by him, and he tells him that he actually isn't a drug lord, and he's being framed by his rival. He asks Bond to accompany him to attack him, and Bond learns that he's telling the truth. So yeah, honestly, that's really all I could remember after reading the summary. And I mean, it's a fun story, but I did get confused with parts of a later and greater kind of version of this story that is in a few books from now. I'll be talking about that book soon enough, so I'm not gonna really give any spoilers for it. And just going to the last one, and this was probably the worst one of them. It doesn't even involve anything with James Bond being a spy. He's basically just hired as a guide by a either millionaire or billionaire, and most likely millionaire based on the time this would have been set, who wants to go and find some rare fish. And the guy's just a really unlikable person. They find the fish after the guy just goes and destroys an ecosystem, and then he gets assassinated. And Bond's really not sure who did it. It's never really revealed where everyone's basically a suspect. And Bond just hides the body because he doesn't want to get questioned. So, yeah, honestly, I barely remember that story after reading through the summary for a good amount because, at least the last one, I read a little bit of the summary. I was like, oh, yeah, that's what happened. This one, I basically had to read through the entire plot summary, and I was like, okay, now I remember it when I see, like, the final thing in it. So, yeah, honestly, these are, they're decent books, and this is, well, really not my least favorite Bond book. I do know which one of them it is, and it is coming up, but this one, it's just a sort of a mixed bag. I feel like none of the stories are truly amazing on their own. They're all at least pretty decent, besides that last one, which I feel like is just James Bond completely out of his element. But yeah, honestly, I do want to know what you think. Please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.